What are the scouts saying about Bronny?
This is their take after watching him play. I still don't think he's ready. If the Lakers don't draft him, I don't see anyone drafting him. The other scout I talked to, he's a poor man's Davion Mitchell. He is not an NBA prospect, in my opinion.
This last offseason, the Suns were able to sign some minimum contracts that at the time seemed very positive. Players like Eric Gordon that you just didn't think would be willing to sign for a minimum, but did. Obviously, not all of them worked out. This offseason, the Suns have an opportunity to not only do one of the funniest things ever, but something that could be brilliant, and it needs to be discussed. That, of course, is Bronny James. If you go by what a lot of scouts are saying, is slipping. Should be projected to be like a late second-round pick. But if the Suns take him, there's a high likelihood that, of course, LeBron James comes along like Eric Gordon on a minimum. We'll discuss it in full detail, but Sundo, why is this the wrong thing to do?
Why is it the wrong thing to do? I mean, I'm not saying it's the wrong thing to do. I laugh at the idea because it sounds ridiculous, but it's so ridiculous that it could happen with everything that we've seen in the Matt Ishbia era, and it's only been a quick year or two with Matt Ishbia. And we've seen crazy things happen. We've seen the firing of a coach, a hiring of a coach, and the firing of a coach. We saw him completely turn the roster on its head and get Kevin Durant. I believe there's nothing that Matt Ishbia wouldn't do to build this into a championship team, or a team that he believes is a championship team, or a team that will be talked about in the news cycles for the entire year. And what better way to do that than to draft Bronny James, and then somehow, some way, you get LeBron James to come to Phoenix on a minimum, which is probably the only way you're going to get him, knowing that we are under the second apron. So you could try to move some other players and make it happen, trade a Nurk, do whatever you got to do, but that's literally the only way. If that happens, we're talking, I'm not going to say circus, but we're just talking some of the wildest things that have happened for the Phoenix Suns and the NBA in general for the past year with Matt Ishbia. And here's the deal, man. Like, the more I think about it, it's almost like, man, like, you kind of gotta think about it. Like, and here's the deal. The connection with James Jones is the final piece to make this all make sense. LeBron James won a championship with James Jones, good friends with James Jones, has always vouched for him, has nothing but good things to say about James Jones. What's there to say that James Jones doesn't reach out to LeBron and say, hey, we're taking Bronny. Come here, play with Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, sign this minimum. We have a good team here. You can be the main ball handler that we know we're missing, and you can feed players. You don't have to put it all on your shoulders. Like, you start considering all of these factors, and it, like, the more and more it makes sense. And the more and more, like, I'm not trying to will it, but the more and more, like, with the Ishbia connection, Ishbia wanting to do things crazy, with the James Jones connection, with him playing with Durant, Booker, and playing with three solid players, he doesn't have to do everything in his brightly age of 40. Like, the more I think about it, the more it makes sense, and the more it's a possibility. And it's crazy to even be considering that, Gabe.
But there are a lot of reasons. You mentioned the James Jones connection. That always used to be a fallacy. The thought that their relationship would have anything to do with where he would go and play, and that he would actually come to Phoenix because of his friendship with James Jones. He had a lot of friends, all right? He's not playing for Shane Battier's softball team. It's not like LeBron would even be doing that big of a favor to James Jones. James Jones isn't coming to you hat in hand anymore, LeBron. In his hand, he has Kevin Durant, still very close to in his prime, Devin Booker entering his prime, and Bradley Beal still in his prime. Your son that you've been talking about for years, about how all you want to do is play with your son, and an honest to God opportunity to win a title. You get everything. You get to have your cake, LeBron, and eat it too. And the other perfect thing to me is the fact that he fits two huge needs for the Suns. Number one, an orchestrator of the offense. We say it's a point guard. It doesn't have to technically be a point guard. It's just somebody who does that basically nobody other than Joker does it better than LeBron. Number 2, a leader in the locker room. I don't love his leadership style, but it's a leader.
Yeah, it would bring some leadership. I think if he does show up, he'll garner a lot of respect at the locker room. Now, I'll bring up some reasons why I wouldn't do it. Now, this team is already aging and getting older and older every offseason. There's always that. We had Mikal Bridges and Cam Johnson and traded them for a 35-year-old Kevin Durant, add a 40-year-old LeBron James to that. The team's just going to continue to get older with Eric Gordon, who I think more than likely will opt into his player option to come back to the Suns, right? So there's that. You don't want to just continue to make this team and let this team get older. And also, the prospect of spending a first-round draft pick on Bronny James is just like, look, the dude is projected as a late second-rounder. They're calling him a poor man's Davion Mitchell game. Okay, that's what the scouts are saying. So the idea of using your first round pick on Bronny James is just like maddening. You could use that to get a young player that you can develop, that Coach Bud can develop, that could potentially contribute more than a Bronny James. Now, who's to say that we don't get to draft day and that pick gets traded for some seconds, whatever, and now we're in the second round? Then it would make more sense. Then I would be like, okay. And if that does happen during the draft, because that's the only time we are able to trade that pick is draft day, I'm gonna go ahead and just call it as immediately when it happens. They're gonna get Bronny James. Like I would dare say that. Like if they do trade that pick, get some seconds, I'm like, hey, they're trading Bronny James for that first second. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. That's what I would say. But the prospect of drafting him with the first round pick is just I don't like it. I know, I keep saying it makes more sense. It makes sense whenever I keep thinking about it, but that would be the most Suns thing ever. We're already, considered a joke to most NBA fans. They don't like the one thing that of course the Phoenix Suns would draft Bronny in the first round. You know how crazy that would be. So that's my other issue of doing this. One, getting old. Two, you're not going to waste that first round pick on Bronny. That's my devil's advocate to our points. But once again, when you think about everything else, though, it starts to make a lot of sense.
I agree that there are downsides. We don't have a lot of first round picks left, just every other year. We've given up control of way too many picks to just be willy-nilly with some. However, if you look at it from a strict standpoint that you're drafting LeBron James during your short window of opportunity for a title, I don't like throwing good money after bad, but you are in this situation. Do you not maximize your opportunity inside this situation? And I'm not saying that LeBron James is who he used to be, but as long as that LeBalco is still pumping through his veins, I think we're going to be okay for a year or two.
Yeah, I mean, there's always that. I can't necessarily disagree with that. If you look at the contracts, we basically have Kevin Durant for, like you said, the championship window, basically. We got Booker for another 3-4 more years, and then Bradley Beal is right in between those two contracts as well. And so you're right, it does make a lot of sense. Like, maximize the window, while you have it. I just look, man, we have no controls over picks until like 2030 something. 2030, I think. I can't remember. I'm not even paying attention to it because it's so far ahead. It's like, oh my goodness, that's 6 years of not having control of your draft picks. Not to mention, man, and this thing irks me, like getting caught tampering for Drew Eubanks, like, absolutely makes me mad, because you could have been like, hey, we got a first round pick, we'll spend it on a good player that we like, and then, hey, the second round pick that we have, we could get Bronny James. We can have the best of both worlds, but now we can't because we got caught tampering for Drew Eubanks of all players. So yeah, I mean, to your point, you could maximize the window if you wanted to with this idea. And once again, I'm not going to say we're not going to do it, because we have seen crazy things happen in the last year for this franchise. And one more crazy thing like this wouldn't surprise me at all.
Tell us what you guys think in the comments. Would you actually use the Suns first rounder to grab essentially LeBron James? Probably see you guys Sunday for a live stream. Be looking out for that. Until then, go Suns.
Go Suns.